new episode of the Cradle News Roundup coming to you live. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I am news editor for the Cradle, and I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, content creator and writer for the Cradle, Karim Shami, and back after months long absence into let's celebrate everyone here in the chat who has missed the great, the only Sharmin Arwani, editor for the Cradle. We are so happy to have you back, Sharmin, and I know many people also in the chat will be very, very happy to hear from you. Many things happening, of course, never a lack of news. You have missed some events, you have missed a few events. You missed Al Qaeda returning to New York, but we held the fort here. And from what we are hearing, some drones are flying the Cradle offices, and other drones are bombing the south of Lebanon as we speak. This is apparently how the Zionist entity has chosen to welcome our very, very good friend Sharmin Arwani back. What exactly is happening over there, you guys?
Yeah, so today, I think around 2 hours ago, the Israeli army released, the Israeli army threatened south of Lebanon, and they released several maps, and they launched a bombing campaign in south of Lebanon. And now I will put some footage of that we acquired just like 1 hour ago of what's happening in south Lebanon. And after that, I
We're
think
not.
like
I don't think it's on screen, Karim.
yeah, no, it's still loading.
Ah, okay, okay. Sorry about that.
So what happened is that after that, around sorry, I will put the volume down. Around 30 minutes ago, also the drones and the airplanes of the Israeli army is like flying above Lebanon, and especially yani, above our office. Yani, you can see the airplane in your eyes. Yani. And this, I think, happened following the letter that today Hezbollah released
You think it's a response to
today
the letter?
morning. I think so, because whatever Hezbollah says or whatever do, there's actual response from Israel, and I think this is part of the Israeli response. Although the letter had nothing, yani, nothing threatening, or like it was a normal
It was calling on the government
letter.
to
Yeah, it was
act.
for the government, and we have to be like a one nation, and to stand against what's being cooked for Lebanon. That was the
And I
source
mean,
of the letter.
essentially, the letter also said, let's not be foolish. This is an enemy that has, it's sort of like outlined what had happened so far since the ceasefire and made clear that the enemy has violated thousands of times the agreement, and the Lebanese government, the Lebanese army, and Hezbollah have abided by it. And, sort of asked the government and officials in Lebanon to pay heed to this, that the enemy only understands force.
Mhm.
And now they're being sort of pushed and corralled into, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun potentially having direct talks with the Israelis. And the letter said, don't do that. They haven't abided by the terms. They haven't abided by their obligations. Why are you giving them this? Why would you give them reward them for this? They'll only sort of um, take more concessions. Even don't fall into this plot. Essentially, make the ceasefire stand. Don't get diverted by the new discussion on the table.
Exactly. And actually, let me point to the feature we published yesterday at the Cradle that I highly recommend people go and read by the great Radwan Mortada, a good friend as well of the Cradle of everyone here, in which he talks exactly about this, right? Of what exactly does peace mean for the Israeli government. It means domination. It means absolute control, and is what they're proving
Mhm.
on the ground as we speak right now. As we said, even above the Cradle offices, which are located in a very commercial neighborhood of Beirut, very close to some major universities. They don't care. They are flying these drones. They are threatening people day in, day out. They have violated the ceasefire thousands and thousands of times. So what exactly does a ceasefire mean anymore, right? What does peace mean to these people?
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to point out something about the letter. Also, they said the agreement between the Israelis and the Lebanese government last year, it was like to complete the UN resolution 1701, which say that the weapons should be removed south of the Litani River. But what happened now, and what's happening, is that the government is forcing Hezbollah to hand over the weapons in all Lebanon. So as if uh, I think it's as they said it in the or hinted to it in the letter, it's a stupid move from the government, which now uh, wants to take the weapons of Hezbollah and all Lebanon, as if the Lebanese government added like how you say it, as if they added a new
Like an article, a line.
yeah, a new line
Mhm.
which benefits Israel.
Karim, your audio dropped a bit. I don't know if I'm the only person that heard it drop, but just in case, because apparently
Okay.
we sometimes our audience has some audio issues. Yeah, like this agreement was signed a year ago, right? It's like we're just
Yeah.
a few days from the 1 year anniversary, and the Israelis have not adhered to it in the least, killing hundreds of people, terrorizing the south of Lebanon, which essentially has become uninhabitable. People cannot rebuild, people cannot go back to their homes. They're destroying construction equipment, you know, killing Hezbollah members in violation of international law, of conventions, of everything, as well they're wont to do. And meanwhile, Lebanon keeps getting threatened, right? Tom Barak giving them an
Mhm.
ultimatum, it's now or never. You disarm Hezbollah, or we're going to come in and destroy your country. Unfortunately, is this the status quo for Lebanon? Is this it moving forward? And just one last thing, someone in the chat asked, does Lebanon have any air defenses that aren't beholden to the U.S.?
No, we don't have anything. We don't even have balloons.
Slingshots.
Some slingshots that, oh my god.
Unfortunately, this is the
Uh,
case.
I mean, this is the case when you have, like the government is essentially responding to the diktats of this occupation. At the end of the day, the Israelis are occupying the south of Lebanon, and the U.S. acts as the tutor, right? They are the ones telling Lebanon what to do and what not to do, and the Lebanese government, unfortunately, is very comfortable in that position.
Well, they're complaining that the Lebanese government is no good. So the Israelis don't like Joseph Aoun um, because he can't disarm Hezbollah, and the Americans, by and large, don't care for Joseph Aoun because he has not been able to accomplish their real goal, right? The disarmament of the resistance. And but I mean, I don't even know. Is it even worth discussing whether ceasefires are abided by all parties? They want to
Unfortunately, not.
negotiate another agreement. What is an agreement? The U.S. is just now trying, issued a draft um, on on Gaza and what's going to happen on Gaza. It's just so full of loopholes and
At the Security Council, you
no
mean?
no resolution, just managing crisis and not actually ever resolving it. Undermines completely Palestinian sovereignty and the rights that are enshrined in various UN Security Council resolutions. Um, you know, wants to put wants to insert security forces in the area, yet is not calling for Chapter 11, because that would mean other countries can go in and help. So, militarily. So it's just a farce. Sometimes I just go, why are we even reacting to their narratives? Yeah, there's no point in the Lebanese government talking to the Israelis. Why would you give them anything extra when they haven't, fulfilled their obligations in the past year? Why would you? I mean, do you know what a donkey that's going to make the government of Lebanon look like? I mean, I think there's a real realization here, even among sort of U.S. supporters or just West toxified Lebanese, that the
Ah,
U.S. is
yes.
never going to offer a solution.
We have them
Uh,
everywhere. We have them everywhere. I just want to
yeah.
point to a couple of things in Hezbollah's letter. In particular, they talk about the exclusivity of arms cannot be discussed in response to foreign demands or Israeli blackmail, but only within a national framework. This has been their
Mm,
position for the past year. They also say, and again, something that is just apparent, to anyone who's paying attention. Israeli enemy does not target Hezbollah alone. It targets Lebanon in all of its components and seeks to strip Lebanon of every means to reject the Zionist entity's extortionist demands. I mean, last week we sat here and we talked about how Israeli soldiers walked into South Lebanon and shot up a municipality building and killed a civil servant in his sleep. And nothing happened. It's been more than a year
yeah.
since that Beeper terror attack, and still absolutely no accountability. If anything, celebrations. Look at the Israelis; they're so smart. They put bombs in beepers.
And look at the build up to, while they're insisting on these direct negotiations and more concessions, they're now there's that whole new narrative that the Israelis have pushed that Hezbollah has um, rearmed with alarming speed and has recalibrated and reorganized with alarming speed and is stronger than it was, when the ceasefire took place. And now they've militarized north of the Litani and so on and so forth. They're just, they and then the drones around and ready to basically launch war on southern Lebanon. I just saw something before we went live that um, they're saying uh, that the Israeli occupation forces are not quite prepared for a Hezbollah confrontation, but they need about another month or so. I don't even know what that is. Like, they don't know um, Hezbollah's preparedness. They're saying this because they want a reason to attack
Mhm.
Lebanon. They're saying that it's rearming so that it can look like Lebanon
Is
fell
violating.
short of its obligations. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
all again. Do you remember Hamas has its headquarters under this hospital? That's why we're targeting it. And then all of Gaza is flattened. There's not a single thing the Israelis say that we can count
it
on
it's
as being true.
today their BBC had this report that they sent some journalists into Gaza in an
Yeah.
Israeli controlled tour. And when the journalists asked them, like, okay, like, why did you destroy this so widely? The soldiers say, because in every house there was a sniper's nest, they were booby trapped with bombs, there was rocket launchers, there was a tunnel underneath, there was a Hamas base underneath. Every single building in Gaza, apparently, Hamas infrastructure. So the south of Lebanon is the same, right? Like they're building up construction equipment, they're killing engineers, they're not permitting people to go back to their homes. They're creating an apocalyptic reality like they have in Gaza for the south of Lebanon. And unfortunately, as Karim says here every
Mm.
week, there's a factions or there are factions within the Lebanese government and within Lebanese society who are very comfortable with this reality.
I think that's changing, but just briefly to the BBC article, somebody had pointed out, I guess, had counted, I think maybe 6 or 7 times that the BBC report had said Israeli officials say, which just goes back to my point. Why are you even doing that?
Mhm.
Who says that anymore? What journalist would say that anymore,
Take it seriously,
given
yeah.
the amount of lies? Yeah, what was the point you had just led to?
I was just talking about like the factions within Lebanon, the sects who are, they do not
Oh,
mind what's happening in the south in the least.
yeah. Well, while I was away, and right before I left, I met with a top Lebanese official, let's say, very close to the president, and he had been very interested in diversifying economically with China and Russia and others, which was interesting. Um, I know this person for some time, so it was the only thing he was really enthused about in our conversation. So I could see he meant it. And then while I was away, I read an unusual article by a sort of I think, Lebanese Western writer, Michael Young, I think his name is, and he talked about, he said it's becoming fairly clear to that segment of Lebanese society that has tended to be pro American and pro West that the US is not going to and not willing to deliver solutions for Lebanon. They've counted on the US because they thought, okay, we're going to rebuild, Lebanon's going to be the bride of the region again. And that's not going to happen now, he says. And it's an opportunity for us to start to look at diversifying our partners. And I thought, oh gosh, you know, that right, that the narrative is cracked.
The narrative is cracked, and yeah, I mean, you are seeing it more and more. Like we have talked about here in the podcast at length, about how like in different regions of the world you are seeing this opening, right, or like this marked separation from the U.S. Led international rules based world order, whatever it's called. And now Someone asked in the chat a few minutes ago, like, why doesn't Lebanon buy air defenses from the Russians or like the North Koreans or whoever?
They're not even allowed to they're not even allowed to get like China offered to build out the Tripoli port and also the port that was blown up in Beirut. And the Russians have offered military equipment in the past. They're not even allowed to discuss it here in Lebanon.
Yeah.
That's how it is. I told a story a few months back on the podcast about me buying a Xiaomi phone and then having to go registered in Lebanon, going to the Ministry of Telecommunications. They're like, you don't have to pay taxes on that. We haven't even figured out Chinese phones yet. They're not allowed. They're just simply not allowed. So what has China done? China's fallen back on building an opera house. you know, um, for Lebanon. It's actually
Really?
building an opera house north of Beirut. It's kind of like, well, we can't do anything that looks, remotely political or military or so, or help with the infrastructure of the economy. So let's do something cultural.
That's
A- a-
that's
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Charmaine, because just before we started the podcast, you guys had yet another blackout. Just an everyday thing. Sadly, in Beirut, China right now is leading the change of power grids, their own power grid, and in Africa, and we'll get into that in a minute, and in Southeast Asia as well, from fuel, whatever fossil fuels to
Mm.
green energy. They are the world leaders in solar energy. This is why, for example, yesterday the head of Nvidia, the chips company, said China is going to win the AI race, and it's not about like they have better technicians or whatever. It's because they have a better electricity system. They can provide more electricity for what's needed for these advancements. Lebanon, a country with daily blackouts, they will benefit so much from having solar farms provided by the Chinese or just bought from Chinese companies. But then, the US is not going to allow that. They do not like that for Lebanon.
You can't even do this as a private enterprise.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy here. Because, what we're going to talk about, the Nigerian refinery plant shortly, is a private enterprise. Nigeria has four oil refineries, and none of them work as of the last few years. So you're not even. As a business person, I could not come and set up an electricity plant in this country. The corruptions and the limits and the red lines are enormous. But we're going to blow through that at some point. It's really evident
I think it's inevitable.
because
Yeah.
the changes are seismic. The Chinese are not only so far ahead technologically and in terms of infrastructure, and they're not selling these things at premium prices to global South countries.
Mhm.
They're sharing their technology, remarkable in and of itself. Um, I was in China. I think I may mention that in the comments and in the last few weeks, and I don't know. Maybe this is for like a Patreon discussion or something at some point.
No, it would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be fun because yeah, I'd seen all the TikToks and the whatever, and so I expected it to look great. But the other things about China that surprised me, I was in two areas. I was in Shanghai and then Guangzhou. And in Shanghai's a major city, right? It's the second city in China, and it's huge, huge population, but it wasn't crowded. There weren't loud noises on the streets. Half the cars are electric vehicles. They're like these big boulevards and not a lot of cars. People use public transportation. It's everywhere. You know, I just come from Korea to China, and Korea, sadly, South Korea has now one of the highest suicide rates in the world.
Yeah.
Koreans are so hard on themselves, and so, I'm pro America, but so hard on themselves and so demanding. And in China, everyone was really chill. I don't know. They were
They live in the
chill. They
future,
were open
Charmaine.
minded. They were, there was everything. Everything was modern, but modern as not in stupid modern, right? They knew who they were. They know their roots. They know their culture. So modern with that identity, and that was really nice to
It must be
see.
fascinating. It must be
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah. We have a super chat, a cheeky super chat from Ostada Dansari, who says, Esteban, you said Al Qaeda returning to New York. Were you referring to the new mayor? I hear he's Shia. Of course, I wasn't. I of course meant Al Julani himself. Mandani, to call him Al Qaeda. I don't know about that one. I also want to thank for the super chat to Jolly Lollipop. New York City Mayor Mandami says he will arrest anybody wanted for war crimes upon their arrival at JFK. This should include the Israeli Prime Minister. Do you guys want to discuss a bit Mandani? I know, Charmin, you have thoughts which differ, I think, a bit from how I feel about this guy. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about this victory?
I mean, I'm assuming from the way you said that you think he's just like another AOC and will turn and
Yes,
whatever. Yeah.
yes. In
But
my
but,
view, he's just AOC but Muslim.
but here's the thing, okay? Let's just be logical about this. You can come in with the best platform, and if the time's right, people will vote you in. I suspect there is a good portion of young people in New York City who voted for Mamdani because what he said in that first debate. Yeah, I'm not going to Israel. I'm going to stay right here in New York
True.
City. So I think, if you get the right message out at the right time, that's great. Then what happens is you have to deal with the halls of power. You
Yeah.
have to, politics is you can go in with, let's say, three passion projects, but you have to give something in order to get people to vote your way. It's you're trading all the time in Congress, in, different assemblies across the US, across the world. You're constantly trading. And it's inevitable that a lot of messages get diluted, that you try to please too many different kinds of constituents. If you took this job, Esteban, you'd be hard pressed not to sound like slightly battered and watered down after a few years. What I'm saying is, he has said some strong things. I mean, he has said he will arrest war criminals if they enter, right, New York City. I don't actually know what the legality of that is. If diplomatic community trumps,
Yeah. And
local
he
law
meant Netanyahu
enforcement.
just as much as he meant Putin.
Yeah, let him. The point is, why does everyone have to think 100% like us on all issues in order for us to like them, trust them, etc.? You know, you make coalitions with people, with bodies, um, over common interests. It doesn't mean you'll have to rely on everything, together. So I feel like sometimes, like while I was away, guys, let me be honest, okay, the way you guys went off on Russia and went off on, and I was like, y'all just expect. Yeah, I'm sure it felt good. I was
It did.
literally,
It did. It did. It was liberating.
yeah,
As
yes,
far as Mandami, just very quickly, I think my view, and this is just completely, obviously my personal view. This does not reflect at all how the Cradle may or may not approach these subjects. I don't trust U.S. politicians in general. I don't care about U.S. politicians. Like, do whatever you want with your city, do whatever you want with your country. Leave us alone. That's my thing. And I feel like, unfortunately, that's far beyond the reach of anybody who reaches a level of power within the United States. Because to reach that level of power, you need to sell out. I think that, like, this is the blunt way of saying kind of what you're approaching as well. It's like you have to. He said, "I'm gonna have Zionists in my cabinet." The presidents of Cuba and Venezuela are dictators. Hamas must be condemned. This is not how you resist an occupation. I mean, unfortunately, this is the reality of the
yeah.
U.S. political system. So my own thing is, you do your own thing. Just leave us alone. Stop with the bombs. Stop with the genocide. Stop with the interference. Stop with the bases. Stop with the black what do you call it, with the death squads. All of this, like, that's my thing. When I see a candidate that approaches it from that perspective, I'd be like, yes, that's awesome. But as long as that continues to happen, then my take is just like the United States is unfortunately a country that is going to continue to be ruled by the same oligarchy that dresses itself in two different types of clothes. Right now, one is MAGA, and the other one is what they're attempting to do with, what they try to do with Kamala. I'm sure they will try to do it with Mandami as well.
Well, I'm sure, if it's any consolation to you, Esteban, the pressure on Mamdani is just going to, ratchet up every week,
Yeah,
every month,
completely.
from the billionaires, the Zionists, the Islamophobes, all the major publications and media, every mistake he makes, what, 34-year-old guy,
Muslim.
right? Taking on Muslim Shia, right? But 34-year-old guy, talking
Hmm.
about the age you're taking on
Ah, okay.
a major city like that, which is so smelly and full of potholes. I mean, I don't know if anyone's visited New York City in the last 10 years, but that's a really decaying city.
I think
They'll
so.
blame Mamdani for everything. His task is not going to be easy. I just believe that you have to be opportunistic in politics, and I don't mean opportunistic in a really cynical, awful, ugly way. I mean it in the sense that, you have to build coalitions. You just do with like-minded people. I mean, you think Russia and China and Iran and whatever, very independent thinkers, very independent histories, etc. Came together and just cleaved to each other despite their enormous differences. No, but at some point they grew up and said, well, we have common cause at this point, and this common cause supersedes any differences. You know, the other side, they only have two things they're interested in: money and power. And so, of course, they don't have a whole, bunch of issues on which to disagree. Whatever is going to help you get a power, whatever is going to help you secure more money. It's easy peasy. So I think we have to be like a little bit more tolerant of people who, with some shared values and ideas, and, also having thoughts that are different to ours.
We'll see. Obviously, right? It's just starting. I
Yeah.
honestly like my take at the end of the end is just I hope that for New Yorkers he actually works out, right? I want to thank Olnara Marchis for their super chat. They say, "Welcome back, Charmin. We missed you. We did indeed miss you." Karim, do you have any takes on Mandani?
Yeah, I have first. يعني first we have to know that New York City is the second biggest city in the
Speak
world that
up a bit
hosts.
if you can, Karim. I'm sorry, you're a bit low.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, my bad. So I want to say that New York is the second biggest city in the world for that where Jews live, and despite that, Mamdani was selected, and it's not about because he's Muslim, as he's the only one during the debate. As Sharmin said, he said, "I will not go to Israel. I will stay here." And previously, he had like a command. He said that I will um arrest Netanyahu, despite if he can do it legally or not. But no, he said it. I don't think any other candidate had the
The
like
balls.
the balls to say it. So this shows us that if in New York, a mayor came who said this against Israel and against Netanyahu, this means in other places that have like less influence from Zionist Jews will be able also to vote and to get new mayors and new congressmen that are not under the influence of Israel or under the influence of APAC. And there is many videos and many shows in the United States now. They are saying that they will not vote for anybody who takes money from APAC. And I think this is a very
Yeah.
positive thing that will eventually be positive, not only for the United States, but only, also for other regions in the world, and especially here, because unfortunately, I think the policy of the United States affects a country like Lebanon more than it affects you as citizens.
It's so important that we just make coalitions where they exist. This is a very, very crazy time in the world right now. I mean, you think I agree with Marjorie Taylor
Taylor
Greene, or,
Green, yeah.
or Tucker Carlson, or Massey, or
Who
Candace
else?
Owens on All
Mm.
Things. No, I don't. But I like what they're saying. And they would
It's
like what
necessary.
I'm saying. Before I started the Cradle, I actually wrote for the American Conservative for a few years. And before, people would be like, "What are you writing for the American Conservative for?" I'm like, ugh, I don't want to even explain, but they're essentially they're a Republican, a conservative publication that writes a lot about foreign policy and has been against forever wars for quite a while, and uses um, logic, and realism in which to figure out what good U.S. policy should be. And they loved my articles reporting from Syria and the region, writing about a whole host of geopolitical issues. Why would I turn my back on that? And why should they turn their back on me? Um, sort of a pro-resistance person, even though their government, it's I don't understand that. I hate that you guys do that. I mean, I love you guys, seriously, or in Korea they do this, but come on.
Um, Karim, someone's asking in the chat, what does Yani mean?
Yani means meaning, or like yeah, meaning.
I mean, right?
It's
Uh,
how the Americans say
Ah,
all the time.
it's
yeah,
a much
He's a
more
Lebanese
elegant.
valley girl.
Uh,
yani literally it means this means X, but we use it like to fill our maybe
it's like a
sentence,
filler
or
word,
if
like a
I
filler
my
word.
brain is translating something from Arabic to English,
Yeah,
instantly
it's
I
a
say
sentence
yani.
filler, just
Yeah, yeah.
is.
It is
Yeah, I just want
Karim's
to say that
favorite word.
I agree with really really in the chat. He or she said that Zahran Mamdani opens the door for anti-Zayu language in the
Yes.
US politics. And also, Sharmin, you have like more than, I think, 8 people. They are saying, hi, Sharmin, welcome back.
They miss you. They miss you. Make sure to hit that like button, everyone. It's anonymous. It's free.
안녕하세요.
It
Ni
really helps
hao.
us. Show us how much you miss Charmin. But let's continue, guys. As the title of this stream says, Trump's on a hunt for oil. Donald Trump is on a hunt for oil wherever it might come from. As I mentioned earlier, you right now have two major superpowers in the world. One of them, moving towards green energy, towards solar, towards a cleaner sources of energy, and the US, which is completely doubled down. We are going to stick with fossil fuels. We're going to be the main oil distributors, oil sellers in the world. And there was this soundbite from the who was it, the deputy secretary of energy, I think, of the US, who said in a forum that the strategic petroleum reserves of the US, he said, have been depleted. Now, let's remember this for a second, that in 2022, when Joe Biden was in power and Saudi Arabia and Russia were essentially, messing with him by keeping the OPEC plus, uh, what was it called? The production cuts, right? The
Quotas.
production cuts
Oh, okay.
of OPEC plus. It was essentially a big FU to Joe Biden, right? Like Joe Biden kept
Mm.
saying, like, guys, please, you need to boost oil production. And then Saudi Arabia was like, you know what, screw you, Joe. We're not going to do that. We're going to stick with the Russians. And it was Joe Biden who dipped into the SPR, right, to keep prices at the pump down following the pandemic and, well, all of this. Now they are saying, the Trump government is saying, our SPR is depleted. We need to feel it somehow, some way. And wow, well, when you look at that, the opposition leader of Venezuela, the most warmongering character in South America, is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And now she's going from forum to forum, from interview to interview, saying Iran is in Venezuela, Hezbollah is in Venezuela, Hamas is in Venezuela. All of the bad actors, the Russians, the Chinese, everyone who hates the
No,
United
but
States and everything it stands for is in Venezuela. We need to bomb it, right? That's one side of the world. And on the other side, apparently the Nigerians are committing a genocide of Christians, and they also need some good old democracy coming from those plains of the US. Surprisingly enough, both countries very rich in oil, right?
Yeah, I prefer to also play the video before commenting on it.
Please, front video. This is Lebanon.
This is the program.
This is a preview, honestly, for what they want to do in Venezuela and
Yeah,
everywhere else.
100%.
Sadly,
Let me re-upload it again.
she has the
Hopefully
The
it will
video.
work
Strategic
now.
Petroleum Reserve
Okay.
has been depleted, and it is part of our job going forward to try to replenish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were quite a lot of sales in the past. Yeah.
Speaking of policy,
Yes. Speaking of policies from previous eras, there quite a bit of it was depleted.
and how concerning is that to the administration?
I think it's a concern. I mean, this is something that the president was pretty clear he wanted to see replenished.
Yeah.
Right. The SPR is one of the important tools we have strategically in the United States, and having it available when necessary is a critical element of policy.
What do you think?
So there was it. You want to comment, Sharmin?
Can you pull up Fadi Lama's article from 2022, just to let you know how
Mohammed
prescient
says
the
Hitler is in
cradle is.
Venezuela. That's great.
Okay,
It's on the
so
screen, Sherry.
okay, so um, a good friend and a cradle writer penned this piece in June 2022. Okay, so over 3 years ago, in which he said the way we're heading is, um, as Western hegemony um, collapses,
Mhm.
they're going to they are scurrying to have a plan in place to preserve themselves and maybe beggar their opponents. And so he called it the West's Plan B: secure the realm. Um, Understanding fully that instead of exercising global hegemony, that hegemony would shrink to a number of states,
Mhm.
critical states. And what are those critical states? Obviously, states that ally with you and have the same sort of neoliberal, rules-based order way of thinking, um, not, ignoring international law. Really, what do pirates, what's that word? Where you just,
Plunder?
yeah, plunderers, essentially.
They are
And
pirates.
and one of the things I remember when before Trump became president, he started talking about Greenland and Canada. I immediately thought to Fadi's article, the West's Plan B: secure the realm. Countries with low population, high resources, or just critical resources, but not enough security, right? You take them, you make them part of your realm, okay? And through those resources, you can buy the slavishness of others who need them. You create or exacerbate conflict in global South countries. Uh, you leave them depleted. Lack of food, lack of maybe because of insecurity, not so
Yeah.
much access to food and basics, right? And then they become slavish to you, and that's another way to resource grab. But I think, and Fadi points this out, like global South countries now have a choice. They can jump ship and go to the other side, which he uses such a funny word for it. It's not barbaria, because
Barbarian.
yeah, he says barbaria because I don't know, some like big Western white guy who ages ago called that part of the world barbaria. So he's like, well, barbaria is going to be doing just a-okay because barbaria actually has the resources, right?
Mhm.
They just need to preserve the security and manage to stay out of this realm grab that the West is undergoing. And so here comes Nigeria. So many, I think, issues of interest here to point out. I mean, first of all, we've all heard about Boko Haram, right? And I
We're
actually
familiar.
played that video of the U.S. congressman explaining that Boko Haram and other terrorist groups
Oh
money
my, that's such a
comes
great
from the
video.
United States.
Um,
Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan. It is not. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan, because Pakistan's right next door. USAID spent $840 million in the last 20 years on Pakistan's education-related program. and
Okay.
includes $136 million.
Okay, so I mean, you get the idea now. In this case, I don't know the context. The the U.S. congressman could have just been, justifying Republicans cutting USAID altogether. But the thing is, we don't need to know that. We don't have to pin it on USAID. You have all kind of
Mhm.
um, black ops programs, black money that goes through U.S. intelligence agencies, contractors, foreign governments, etc., to do these kinds of things. I mean, Joe Biden, when he was still Obama's vice president, let slip when he was talking at Harvard about how the US's allies, and he named Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Turkey, I think specifically those three, are funding ISIS or an Al Qaeda. He said that. Um, I mean, we know we know that these are the foot soldiers of empire who doesn't want to put boots on the ground. It's their way to keep a country dependent, chaotic, Um, it's kind of Fadi Lama's, secure the realm kind of article coming into play. And so Boko Haram has been around since I think 2002, right? More than 20 years. And most of its operations are in northeastern Nigeria, which is primarily Muslim. So Muslim have been the main targets.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Those who have been murdered by Boko Haram have mostly been Muslim. And of course, Christians have been murdered too, but that's because Nigeria has a population of about 200 million people, and half of them are Muslim and half of them are Christian. Okay, but its operational area is mostly Muslim areas, and its targets are mostly Muslims. All right, dead, raped, abducted, the whole bit. Um, now, just to point out, Nigeria's security forces have killed the last two leaders of Boko Haram. They're not sitting idle, okay? And I think sometime in the last 10 years, I think around 10 years ago, they essentially declared that Boko Haram was dead, but it sort of like reinvigorated under a new leader or maybe with more American cash.
Shocking.
But yeah, shocking, exactly. But what's the deal with Nigeria? So, I mean, on Twitter, because I made a tweet on Nigeria and it kind of went viral, and I got half of the responses were attacks on what I was saying, half were like, "Oh my God, a foreigner's calling it right," But why? A lot of the naysayers were like, "No, our government's so corrupt, et cetera, et cetera." But then, what's amazing is what this attention of Nigeria by Trump has done. Like, we've all learned about Nigeria,
He's
and
teaching
so
us about geopolitics, Donald Trump.
he is, man. So why is Trump saying this, and why is he saying it now? Because Nigeria has oil and lithium and rare earth elements, and most importantly, because
Mhm.
Nigeria is standing on the precipice. Okay, it's a global South country that is standing on the precipice of becoming a threat of a good example. And let me tell you how. Okay, so Nigeria has had, crude oil forever. I think it has something like $37 billion. Sorry, 37 billion barrels worth of oil. All right, reserves. And what it's been doing is sending its crude oil to the UK, Spain, Netherlands, and the US, but I think mainly the US, for years to get it refined. And then it gets sold back, its oil, at much higher prices, which it has to buy from the US, right?
Mhm.
It has about I think 4 oil refineries that have stayed kind of idle for a number of years. They're just in disrepair. So I can see why people are saying corruption, et cetera. But Nigeria just, I think, was it this year or I think it was late last year, went online with the world's largest oil refinery of its kind, bar none. Okay. And this oil refinery came through a private venture by a very, very wealthy Nigerian. Okay. But he could have been killed for doing this. I don't care if this guy profits beyond measure at this point. He could have been killed for doing this because, in essence, um, it's flipped that formula on the Americans. Now, now the US is selling crude oil or sending crude oil to Nigeria to be refined. That just happened this month. That just happened. Look at what Nigeria did. And this month, Nigeria surpassed, its refinery surpassed creating the amount of fuel that Nigeria needs. Nigeria is now officially self-sufficient. Literally, in the space of less than a year, it went from 0 to 100 and flipped the whole, you know, um, I guess, oil benefiting game on the Americans and external players. Nigeria is a major hub now. There aren't that many countries, in the global south that have refineries of this kind. But there's other things. There's more, okay? Not just the rare earth elements, because Nigeria is now launching a plant to refine these elements, okay? So what have we all heard that China's, putting a stop to selling the US and its allies rare earth minerals? Well, Nigeria is now developing this internally. But Nigeria was also the single largest recipient of Chinese construction financing in 2025 or 2025 so far. And the countries, Nigeria and China, have signed billions of dollars in investment partnerships. Nigeria also this year in January became a partner member of the BRICS. They've crossed every American red line, you know. And so all of a sudden we get the Christian genocide story.
The Christian genocide story, the white genocide in South Africa. Today, Trump said that South Africa shouldn't even be a member of the G20, that he's not going to attend the G20. He's drawing the line in the sand, right? Like these are pirates, right? Like what you just described in Nigeria, it literally sounds, like, oh, you guys are doing good. Well, let us take that away from you and let us send some Boko Haram fighters to kill, to start
Yeah,
massacring
and
people.
I sort of did a bit of a dive into this refinery, the Nigerian petroleum refinery, and I was reading that it was supposed to, I think, come online in 2023, um, and it couldn't because there were they couldn't get a supply of crude oil. There were people and parties stopping this refinery from receiving oil, and they, instead of bringing oil to the refinery port, they managed to bring it to like some kind of big buoy in the water and then transport it. Then there was a minor fire in mid 2024, and then just before they started production, I think just in the last few months, the refinery dismissed 800 employees whom it accused of sabotage. I mean, last year, the government, you had people accusing it of being a monopoly. So what if you're a monopoly? You're the only one saving the country. The country has its resources below the earth, and nobody's allowing you to extract them. Nobody's allowing you to refine them. And they're doing this. And so the owner, the billionaire owner, offered to sell it to the country, okay, to the Nigerian Oil Association, right? And of course they didn't buy. But I think now Nigeria, the government is suddenly seeing the benefit of this. Whoever was being paid off to stop this project or delay this project has to be on board now, because it is a truly huge accomplishment for this country, that has seen a lot of poverty, very few like services. When it has this much money sitting on this many resources, it's just a poor country by and large, and then you have some billionaires. So I think because Nigeria just, I think in the last week, passed a 15% tax on on oil imports in order to help their local domestic industry thrive, right? So the government and the private sector are at one on this. This is a massive, massive boost to self-sufficiency and independence in Nigeria. So it's kind of really exciting. Anything Trump talks about, Christians, etc. Please, you'd think he'd say something about Palestinian Christians or Syrian Christians.
Ukraine also, yeah.
Yeah. No, right, right. Ukraine's like
Yeah.
shuttering the churches, right? Yeah.
Yani Russians and Ukrainians are Christians, but he doesn't care about the war there.
No.
So I just want to add some facts that first Nigeria is the biggest country in Africa in regards of population, as Sharmin said, and also it ranks first in natural gas reserves. It ranks first in asphalt reserves and limestone reserves, and it ranks second in oil, iron, and in mineral wealth, and in coal reserves in the continent in Africa. And they have oil reserves, as Sharmin said, it's between 37 to 38 billion barrels of reserves. And they have also gold reserves equivalent to 21 metric tons, and they are the sixth in the world in this. So they have many resources. And also, I just want to point out something because what I read under Trump's video, there's many comments from Nigeria and Christians from Nigeria. They are happy of what Trump said, but I don't think they really know what will happen if the United States will intervene. I just want to pull up something, and I will put it in
But there are a lot of
the
Nigerian
screen.
Christians who are saying this is bullshit. There is no genocide.
Yeah, 100%. There's, يعني, for me, the majority maybe what I saw, they were happy of what Trump said, but I just want to point out something. Sorry, I will put it on the screen now. So, according to the official website of the State Department website of the United States, they say that according to Christian and leaders, as well as NGO and media reports, fewer than 150,000 Christians remain in Iraq, down from pre 2003 estimates of fewer than 1.5 million. So now, currently in Iraq, there's around 150,000 Christians. Before the US intervention in Iraq, they were 1.5 million. So only 10% were left. As Sharmin said at the beginning, half of Nigeria is Christians and half are Muslims. If the United States intervene, maybe they will be 5% because they did it before in Iraq, and there's many evidence, and they did it also in Syria. There were many massacres, and the people who committed these massacres against Christians were people aligned with Al Sharia, who is everybody knows now is aligned with the
Who's
United
heading
States.
to Washington, right? He's heading to Washington
Yeah, one hundred
in a
percent.
few
Yeah.
days.
And a US base is opening outside
Yeah.
Damascus. Sorry, I find all this really funny because
It,
it's just they're so kinetic, right? Constantly moving because there's nothing behind it all, guys.
yeah,
Um
there's no pretense of like, like, oh, we're
yeah,
doing this for democracy or we're doing this for whatever. It's like the lazy yes. Even like, look at the bombings in the Caribbean.
yeah.
There's like no attempt to hide that this is just murder.
I know. So, I mean, speaking of securing the realm, okay, so we have Venezuela, we have Nigeria, and then Sudan with
Yeah.
its, plentiful gold. 90% of Sudan's gold goes to the UAE, okay? And the UAE is the country, the main country, US ally, biggest US ally, biggest Israeli ally in the Arab world, okay?
Mhm.
Is the country that is funding and arming the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, absolute thugs. Okay, the ones who did the murders at the hospital that we saw.
They cut their teeth in Yemen, fighting the Saudis war in
Yeah,
Yemen.
yeah. I mean, these guys are the worst of the worst. And guess who's benefiting? Literally, the UAE is backing these people and taking 90% of Sudan's gold. And Trump, by the way, is inserting himself as of today into this equation as a peacemaker. All
Uh-huh.
right, because I think the RSF have come into Khartoum, and
They've agreed on
Khartoum,
a proposal.
yeah, they've agreed on some kind of ceasefire proposal, and Trump will go around screaming once more, "Why don't I have the Nobel Peace Prize?" It's astounding, like the amount of chaos the Americans sow, and then they want credit for cleaning it up under agreement terms that actually are never are about a solution, but just maintaining and managing conflict and crisis.
Indeed, indeed, and it's always. I mean, I don't have much to add to this. I think you guys have covered pretty much everything. I just want to highlight, how naked this all is, Today, no, yesterday, the Homeland Security head of the U.S., Christy Noem, she was in my country. She was in Ecuador, essentially ratifying the fact that Ecuador is about to become the site of more U.S. bases in South America. More likely than not, some more jails, like El Salvador, even Sudan, Libya, are currently profiting from taking in the people that ICE is locking up, disappearing from the streets. Ecuador soon to become yet another location for this. I'm sure some cocaine plantations as well. We saw in Afghanistan. We covered this broadly about the CIA's heroin bonanza in Afghanistan. This is what's happening
Mm.
now in South America. It's what you said. I think you said it, Sharmina, a few minutes ago. Like they're splitting up the world. Essentially, they're saying the Western Hemisphere is ours. We already messed with Europe. Europe is a non-entity at this point. They are gonna have to keep buying our oil for time immemorial, and we're gonna secure the oil reserves of Venezuela because Venezuela is right here, and what a disaster that government has been.
But it's not
So
just the Americas, it's the Philippines,
yeah,
it's the UAE, it's countries again that bring something to the table for them, right? And or that they need, right? Either strategic choke points or resources. And we're just going to continue to see that. And we need to call it out. Honestly, I was so amazed because Fadi Lama wrote this in 2022. And Trump, who is a political idiot, let's be honest,
mhm.
he doesn't know a lot, um, came in and basically announced what US policy is. I don't think we saw this before he came in and started talking about Greenland and Panama and Canada, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. It
Uh,
is a resource grab to secure the realm. That's what's happening right now. And everything moving forward, all crises anywhere you will see is related to how that country geopolitically, I mean, in its geography or in its resources or in population size, even benefits the Western realm.
and it's
Yeah, I just
it's
want to
happening.
add two comments. First, all the links we are discussing will be added to the description below, and also there's people complaining in the chat. We don't
No, are they
we're
are?
not censoring anything. It's automatic by YouTube. We didn't even put the option to censor
Yeah,
anything,
YouTube,
guys,
so it's
YouTube is.
automatic.
we struggle to put videos on when we're live. We certainly don't have the eyeballs to like censor this stuff.
Uh, I was gonna say, like these
And
resources.
Esteban doesn't like censorship because the right more comments are better for the
Yeah,
algorithm. Is that
honestly,
what you
like,
always
Yeah.
say?
we always have trolls. We always have people trolling, and unless they're like offensive or something, then like we'll silence them. But other than that, keep the comments going because we need the help. As far as the resource grab, I do want to point out, and I don't know how much you guys have seen of this. The economic situation in the U.S. is truly abhorrent. Like market wise, right now you have about 10 companies all investing. um, uh, in incredible amounts in AI, building data centers, and these 10 companies dragging the entire US stock market up, while 80% of all of the stocks are essentially, on the downhill trajectory. You have no way to verify unemployment data or, the levels of hunger, all of this stuff, because the government is in shutdown. Trump is using the government shutdown to, do what Elon Musk couldn't, which is just fire as many people as possible. And you have
Airplanes are going to start crashing.
their planes are, yeah, they reduce what is it, like 10% of traffic controllers or 40
Mm.
major airports. I mean, it's a complete disaster. Like the AI bubble is something very real that continues to grow and grow and grow and just make a very small amount of people very rich, including the Trump family in particular. And when this all breaks, when essentially all of this happens, I don't know what's going to end up happening in the US, because at the same time you have him, deploying ICE, giving them budgets that just
Mm.
in the next year they're gonna be several times the size of the FBI, the DEA, the NSA
Mm.
budget. ICE is about to become one of the better funded, the most funded agency in the US. And to do what? To break into kindergartens, to kidnap people from their vehicles, disappear them. There was a case just a few days ago of this Costa Rican man who was arrested by ICE a few months ago, Uh, and then the next time his family saw him, he was in vegetative state. He died just a few
Mm.
weeks later, and to this day, there's no answer from the U.S. government of what exactly happened to this man. And this is just an everyday thing. So if you have an economic collapse and the spread and the funding of a secret police at the same time, where is this all gonna go? And you also, like, I will not forget Steve Bannon saying just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump is gonna be the first third term president, and that's divine providence.
It's
Yeah,
going to be the what? The first what?
He said he's gonna be the first president to serve a third term. And when they asked him why, like, how is this even possible? How could this be possible? He said, it's divine providence.
Do you know, I don't even care what happens there. I mean, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, they're going to throw all their tools in their toolkit at everything. Um, and we just have to be prepared to fight back. Like, I want to, you know, um, it's going to collapse. It's going to collapse. Like, everything they do gets a reaction. I was thinking the other day, the powerful United States with now $1 trillion military budget, right?
Mhm.
A bigger budget than the next 10 military budgets of the next 10 greatest
yes.
spenders, right?
ICE ICE has the same budget of the Russian army, which is a country in war,
Yeah.
which is insane if you think
Yeah.
about it.
So they're just securitizing everything. They're weaponizing everything, data, information, tracking citizens. I wouldn't be surprised if people had to put microchips in. I mean, there's going to be a huge flood of Americans leaving the country. Everything they do gets a reaction. So this massive country with, up to 1,000 bases, military bases around the world, et cetera, they couldn't secure Syria, Libya, Iraq,
They
New York.
Yemen,
they replaced the Taliban with more Taliban.
Afghanistan. They couldn't secure them because and their adversaries in these countries were just normal people,
They had to
right?
flee from the Red Sea, Charmaine.
They
They
I
had to flee
know.
from Yemen.
They imagine that they cannot defeat regular people who learn to pick up, what feels like a toy gun compared to what, the Americans have, and just learn to fight back. You will never defeat a people who are connected, from millennia with that land that they stand on. They have no other place to go. They don't even think in those terms. They do think in terms of safety, but this is what they know. And you cannot, the Israelis, which are just much more minuscule little Israelis, um, cannot possibly do any of this, what they're doing in this area without the United States.
Yes.
All you need is the dollar collapsing. And Americans, by the way, um, pulling a political rabbit out of a hat. Okay, so the kind of things we saw with Zohran Mamdani, right? Candidates running for elections who are promising to upturn everything, right? Um, a few of those, and really that country is just going to, you know, and then the Israelis have nothing. They have no way to continue any of what's happening. And if it stops, Israelis turn on themselves. Just understand that. You know,
I mean,
I
they're
know it
starting.
looks so hopeless, but it isn't. They are this kinetic. I keep saying this. Sorry. I know you guys got a 2-month break from me using the word kinetic, but they are this kinetic because if they stop, they fall. It's
Yeah.
that simple. Yeah. Go ahead.
Let's not forget, guys, this is still the first year of Donald Trump's presidency. He has 3 more to go. And
It's
it's just,
not even a year is not even done. I mean, it's so fantastic. I mean, it's horrible, but it's fantastic because it's an acceleration and it's the acceleration we need. We can't help that it's a beast, right? But we need this process accelerated. So now, y'all had a discussion, which made me like claw at my computer screen about Russia. And it was based on something, an article Mohammed Hassan Swaydan, our
Mhm.
columnist, and frequent guest here, guest podcaster with us, wrote about a conference he attended in Moscow in which they talked about, the Russians kind of exiting the West Asian space. That's not so odd to me. they're fighting a war, and they know that all of Europe pretty much wants this to go on until somehow they manage to defeat Russia, even if it's with nuclear weapons. Okay, and that they're playing nefarious games with many countries on Russia's border. And you want Russia to come to West Asia and do what? I mean, why do you have such big expectations? Do you have such big expectations of your mother
I have
and your
no
father?
expectations of Russia, just FYI.
No, but I'm just saying people. And so one of the interesting things in China, and various experts I spoke to there, um, when I would say, I think, which is fairly typical of people living in global South countries, like we understand that the U.S. is in decline, that it's gone into like chaos mode, and that Russia, China, Iran, other countries rising have been critical, to give us all options, right? Um, so wanting, like we've talked many times, like why doesn't Russian troops land in Gaza? You hear this. Why don't the Chinese airdrop aid? And we hear this all the time. The Chinese experts who are, focused on foreign policy say, like, I don't know how to explain this, but China's kind of shy. And I was like, shy, shy. But, it's grown so enormously in 40 years. It has to catch up with itself. Like a lanky teenager who has the growth spurt in the summer and still doesn't have like perfect balance. It really needs to come to terms with what its new economic role or clout has created in its foreign policy expectations, right? People are looking to China to play a role because they've been used to the Americans, before that the British, before that Dutch, Belgian, Spanish, whatever. They've People have looked to countries to help secure them, and China's not interested in that. It is interested in development for its own population and the economic means in which to deliver that. Okay.
China is another global South nation at the end of the day. I want to point something out actually, but I just want to read a comment very quickly. Charmaine has her
Mhm.
favorite word. Karim has his favorite word. What is Esteban's? My favorite sentence is hit that like button. Just smash that like button. Um, I was gonna say there's actually something interesting that happened while you were away, Charmin, that I think
Mm.
points towards exactly what you're talking about, and it's the posture that China and Russia took at the UN Security Council in regards to the snapback sanctions against Iran,
Yeah.
in which they essentially said we were not gonna accept this. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. We are not gonna be at adhering to this because we think it's illegal, because we don't think this is actually within the international law that they can be reapplied. So now at the UN Security Council you do have the two poles kind of going at each other over the issue of Iran sanctions. And you brought up
Yeah.
something earlier as well. The US is bringing the so-called Gaza, I forget what it's called, but the plan for Gaza to the Security Council.
Mm.
Do you think we're going to see something similar,
Similar.
similar to the Iran position, to the saying, you guys cannot tell us what to do?
Um, no, because I mean, part of what Suedan said was right.
Mhm.
Russia's not going to play a big role in West Asia, and it kind of answered the question of Ahmad Shara and all those Syria people who went like, "Oh, we knew the Russians did it. They got rid of Assad. They sold us out." No, he went to Moscow, and actually, what Sweden discovered in Moscow is Moscow's really not that interested. It will be opportunistic. It will take deals that bring money into its economy. It's not going to do anything for free. It's not going to intervene in a way that makes it clash with its Western adversaries in new theaters. That makes perfect sense. Are you kidding? Overextension is how empires and powers die. Why would it
Sure.
overextend? Let it. Let Moscow is delighted that its adversaries in the West are overextending themselves. It's not going to make that same mistake. Remember, that was Reagan's always. It's what Reagan always said, that the Soviet Union collapsed because of overextension in Afghanistan. The Russians say, well, mismanagement of economy, blah blah blah. Whatever the case is, Russia's not going to overextend itself. But why will it draw the line with China on Iran? Because Iran is in the same position as China, as Russia, as Venezuela, and other countries that the West is coming at existentially. it represents, I mean, it is a major power in its geography, right? It's self sufficient and it fundamentally opposes the hegemony of the beast, right? They are going to ensure that Iran stays strong. All right. This is what's not understood. Russia can say we're not going to get involved with West Asia, but guess what? Iran has said many times to the Russians, we don't need a mutual defense pact with y'all. We fight our own wars alone. This is essential. You know, Russia's fighting its own war in Ukraine. It may have some help from here or there, buy weapons from here or there, but Russia's fighting this war, and Iran is that kind of country too. I mean, I don't think. I think the fact that Iran is on the, you know, the only West Asian country in the SCO, that Iran is a BRICS plus members, that Iran is now a partner country with multiple free trade agreements with the Eurasia Economic Union is a major hint too. Um, these three countries, Rick, okay, Russia, Iran, China, are going to stick together to make sure that punishing U.S. measures like tariffs, like sanctions, etc., are circumvented. These three have the ability to do so. That's not a West Asian play. Okay.
Mhm.
That's a kind of allied play. They're in this boat together. Why would Russia expend? It's fighting a war, all right, with the entire Western
With NATO,
hemisphere.
yeah.
Why would they do anything that just raises the ire of, you know, why would it um, cross Israel? For no reason, just to show that, you know, they're on the right side of history. It's, you know, all our mothers tell us, know when to pick your battles, right?
Karim, do you have any thoughts?
Uh, I only want to comment that people they have hope or they want these countries to be like to have an alliance like the West and NATO, but unfortunately they are not. So that's why sometimes people have like certain expectations and then they are shocked on why this didn't happen because I think these countries they have a mutual enemy, but we can't say that they are an alliance.
Um, no, not allies in the sense that they have defense pacts, okay? But it's very clear that they're working
No,
in the realm of
not even
defense.
economic pacts. يعني for instance, meaning what I mean, for instance, when
Mm,
we saw, for instance, Greece, when the economy of Greece collapsed twice,
mm.
European Union and
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about Rick. You're talking about the West.
yeah, I'm talking about
Okay,
the
got
West.
it, got
No,
it.
they are clearly a stronger alliance, and we, for me, this is how allies should be. But people hope or they want because of the United States hegemony, they want other group to be as powerful as NATO and the EU. But unfortunately, this is not the case. So that's why people they have high expectations or they ask what you said at the beginning. You know, they ask why Russia didn't do anything, why China didn't do anything, because I don't think they are. A powerful alliance or they are not an alliance, they have a mutual enemy, which is the United States. And I don't think even the United States is an enemy. What happened is that the United States put them and made them the enemy of the state. That's why they came together and they have some stuff in common. But we can say they are an alliance or they want to like open wars or
They don't use the word alliance themselves. They make
yeah, I
that really
know.
clear because alliance isn't necessary. All three practice strategic ambiguity. They definitely don't want to, like, you know, um, uh, sort of, you know, emphasize that word alliance anyways. I think we're going to see surprises in terms of how much China comes to and Russia and Iran come to the aid of each other. We've already seen plenty of hints of this. Don't forget, all three countries have the highest level strategic partnerships with each other. And we've seen straight from that get go um, joint military exercises among these three. For sure, you know, especially after the June War, for sure, there's been exchange of technology and military, um, let's say military stuff, because I don't know specifically between these countries. But we're never going to know about it. You know, like the Israelis say that Hezbollah is really ramped up. and consolidated and is rearming. I'd like to say that I actually don't know if that's true or not. And I'd like to say that the reason I don't know if that's true or not is that I don't hear a peep from Hezbollah. Like last year, everybody knew a top Hezbollah person or real insider or someone with access who was just lamenting and talking over coffee. And you just hear these things filtered back to you and be like, why am I even hearing these things? Like, what's happened to this organization? And now there's nothing. So we don't actually know if, any of that is true or
Yeah,
not.
nobody knows.
Yeah. And so strategic ambiguity is going to be key. They don't need to have a pretty alliance with a logo in order for it to be meaningful, because look at the NATO alliance. I mean, really, they're turning on each other in such meaningful ways, and they're not on the same path. They have different priorities. It's
But they
becoming more
do.
clear, and they turn on each other. It's becoming more clear.
Yeah, but they act as a family. And you can
Well,
have
they,
fights
they
between
have, you know,
siblings, but if for instance, I know Sharmin, in fact, يعني what happened, I think in Latvia or Estonia, when airplane,
Estonia.
Estonia, I think, yeah, when
Um,
the Russian airplane like flew over like distant island, small island that is uninhabited, the whole NATO acted. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. That's it. Yani,
no, but they
we should.
act over stupid things. I mean,
I
this
know,
is
I
yeah.
know, but we should be like this. Yeah, meaning not we as Arab,
No,
we as resistance. I think social. I think if we acted as they act after following 7 October, I think we would be in a better place. Because
here.
what happened is that Israel bombed Gaza. They waited and then they started in Lebanon, and then they bombed Iran, and then they bombed Iraq. Although Iraq didn't say anything, and then Yemen. I think if they worked as an alliance, as the West is, I don't think Israel would like do what it did. That's my opinion, and we will
So
never know if I'm correct or no.
we don't walk around strutting. It's just we don't do that. There will be a time in the future where it'll be clear where alliances lie. They don't have to spell it out for all
Yeah,
of us.
yeah, man, they
The
have to
war,
act.
they
yeah.
have to be kinetic.
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no. They have to be they have to be decisive, and they have to strike for a win. And those opportunities come by from time to time. They're not an everyday thing. The Americans are striking out every which way every day. They're just creating animosity for no reason. You know,
Yeah.
this group of partners, no, I like the way they operate. I mean, of course, there's been mistakes. I mean, the West Asia's actions of resistance could have acted in many different ways. They also didn't anticipate the bestiality of the enemy, and they've learned now. I mean, at least today in Hezbollah's letter, right, where they said Israel only understands force. I'm like, you think, you know?
Well, guys, I think we can wrap it up for this week. We've had a very, very lengthy discussion. I think we've gone across the entire world. You know, I'm very proud of us. We missed you, Charmin. Everyone in the chat has missed you. Just a reminder, yet
I
again,
want to say something,
go
Esteban.
ahead.
Like, I don't know why people were saying, "Oh, Charmaine, when she coming back?" I don't get it, because I would literally tune in to the podcasts to learn something from Esteban, Karim, and Seema. I always learn stuff from them.
That's so
I
sweet.
mean, you guys really did an incredible job. Seriously, like for me, our podcast was where, all the bits and pieces I was getting from Twitter and Telegram when my internet worked in China. By the way, that was just the only downside there. um, was coming onto the podcast. So I think you guys did a fantastic job.
Thank you so much,
thank
Charmin. But
you.
thank you very much. We always enjoy it. We want to again thank everyone who joined us. Just make sure to hit that like button after this stream is over. Also, make sure to leave a comment underneath the video. That also helps a lot. YouTube this week deleted hundreds of videos documenting Israeli war crimes, and that's not going to stop. You know that this channel, at the end of the day, what it brings you is the truth, is the news, it's our points of views as well, but we don't sugarcoat it and we don't, take the hegemonic narrative. So of course that makes us a target. That's why we need your support. That's why we need you to check our memberships here on
Yeah, we
YouTube.
had
But
a
more
drone over our head today. Come on, guys.
a literal drone over my colleagues' heads, and yet they sat here for an hour and something and just dissected the current reality. So make sure to support us. Check out our Patreon as well, where you can become a direct supporter of the Cradle on the webpage, on our main page, thecradle.co. You can find merch as well. You can find links to Cradle merchandise. So check all of that out. Support independent journalism, and we'll be here again next Monday, same time. Thank you, Charmin. Thank you, Karim, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. We'll see you.
Bye bye.